we're 80 monks. We are open 365 days a year, 3 meals a day. We have monks that like walk through the kitchen. They'll be in there in like sandals and wool socks and, you know, their robes. And
wow.
They're cooking in the kitchen.
Rad. That's cool.
Well, welcome to the Culinary 360 podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chef Robert.
I'm Chef Ryan.
And I'm Chef Luke. And on today's podcast, we have with us a special guest, Chef Tony Finnestad of St. John's University. I've known Tony now for a number of years and actually had the pleasure of working with him back when we were both national chain chefs as R&D chefs for various brands across the country. Tony's had a pretty wild ride as a chef, and the different places that he's lived, the different restaurants that he's worked for, and equipment manufacturing. I mean, the guy's been everywhere and pretty much done everything. Plus, as you will learn, we all think he's a handsome man, and we're really looking forward to having him on. And
so handsome.
Let's get this thing kicked off.
I think I took like 5 screenshots there just to have his photo on my laptop.
Welcome to the podcast, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
I've given a little bit of background to everybody, and Tony and I had the pleasure of working together back for American Blue Ribbon Holdings. Tony was under Max and Irma's first, and then Charlie's, I think.
Nailed it.
But both of us as like R&D chefs and developing things. But anyways, Tony, I always like to kick this off with letting the guest go through and kind of give us a little background on themselves, highlights, lowlights of your career, and then kind of land on where you're at now and what's going on there at St. John's.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I've been in this industry, honestly, my whole life. I started washing dishes when I was 14 with a buddy of mine. His mom ran the country club that we worked at in our hometown, and they'd pay us in, $20 cash and all the mozzarella sticks you could eat, or all the leftover buffet food. And honestly, I loved it. I was just talking to him about it this morning, actually, and as a 14-year-old kid too, it was super exciting. I mean, it was a fast-paced life, and I loved it. I had no idea what was going on, but I loved every minute of it.
That's funny. My first ever restaurant job was actually at a country club too. I was a server.
Oh God.
Oh yeah.
I know. Awful, right?
You probably just never stopped talking.
Man, jeez.
Shots fired real early.
Yeah, he had the worst ticket times because he'd just be out there having a conversation.
But yeah, then I was a prep cook there, and then a line cook, and then after high school I wanted to go to culinary school, and my parents are super traditional, and they were like, nope, you're going to go to real college and you're going to get a real job. So I went to real college for a couple of years, and I worked in St. Paul, Minnesota, at a couple of restaurants, and both the chefs were CIA grads, and which is where I wanted to go to culinary school. And at that time, you had to have a recommendation from an alum to get in, and so they both wrote recommendations. And after a couple of years of that real college, I think we all agreed it wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at age 20, I moved to New York and went to culinary school. And man, I bounced around the country. We lived in Florida. We lived in I ended up finishing my undergrad at Purdue, but we lived in Taos and Santa Fe and Jackson Hole, Nashville, Dallas, Austin.
Jeez,
it's been all over, man.
Miami. I miss Traverse City.
Traverse City. I forgot about that. Michigan.
Yeah. Spent a bunch of time then as the executive chef for Hormel Foods, and that I've done really from a dishwasher up to executive chef and kind of everything in between.
Right.
I've done a little bit of everything, and it's an industry that I'm super passionate about, and I think if I wasn't, I'd be long gone by now.
Yeah, right. You did something similar to what we do. Also, you were Rep Chef. I believe Turbo Chef.
Oh yeah. Back then, that was Dallas. Yep.
That was Dallas. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, you understand somewhat of what our day to day is kind of like.
Sure, and it's one of those experiences that I didn't really realize it at the time, but it has come in handy so many times since then. Like just in like different roles, like at Hormel, when you're doing trade shows, like somebody's like, how do you work this thing? I'm like, oh, I know how to do,
Yeah.
I know how to do all this. And it's come in handy so many times. And just one of those things that you pick up along the way, that while you're doing it, you're like, well, it's not, I'm learning my job right now, but after this is probably not going to be that useful for me, but it's been super, super useful.
100%. That's so funny. I was talking to one of my old chef buddies the other day. We were talking about it, and we were like, we used to work together, and we were always talking about, man, I can't wait to get out of this industry. It's such a burden. Like, I'm always busy. I don't get holidays off. I'm always on the line. I'm always sweating doing this stuff. And then it's like, all right, now I'm doing this, and he's doing a restaurant in like Montana. And it's like, well, looks like we're just going to keep doing this for the rest of our lives. I'm like, we got food in our blood. We can't get rid of it. It's like an itch. It's like even other jobs that I used to do, it always involved like even like food cost. Like, why am I teaching people how to do food cost? Because it's fun. It's interesting. It's passionate. It's just like in our system. Can't get rid of it.
I think it's an industry that honestly chooses you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A lot of people get into the industry, but the people who stay in it, I think are, they like, it just happens kind of inadvertently, it's like, it's for you, and it's not for everybody. We all 100%. Know some of the dredges of society are, they find a place here, and that's great. It's great.
Yeah. And I think that really showed during COVID when the industries were closing down and people were like, I have this degree somewhere else, left the industry and went and did that.
Yeah.
But the people who were in the industry were like working during COVID, kept it going, and they're still there.
Well, they're the reason why it did continue on, right? Like
Exactly. They kept it driving. It was their passion. It was in their system. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, wow, that was mind blowing how many people actually left and were like, oh, now I'm going to do this. And everyone's like, wait, I need help in the restaurant now. Like, wait, come back.
Yeah, that same buddy that I started washing dishes with when I was 14, he left the industry and went to sell insurance. And he was like, I love it. I love selling insurance. I'm like, dude, you don't love selling insurance.
No, you don't. You love selling insurance.
And now he's back. Now he's working in like B&I corporate, like B&I dining. And I think he truly loves that. He's got kids, and it's like a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday thing, and it's perfect for him. And
right,
I think COVID was good for that too. It kind of like gave people a time to find their niche, maybe, or like pivot at least, and it within the industry even, and just like find out what really drives them and what they really wanted to do.
Totally, and like take a break.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Yeah, great point.
Tony, what were you studying in college before you went to culinary school?
Oh man. You guys want to try and guess? You're never going to guess.
Insurance.
Aerospace engineering.
No, I was actually criminal justice.
Wow.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
That's rad.
I mean, kind of. Yeah. And then I think like once I realized, and I don't know how much of this I could or should say, but once I realized I wanted to work for like the FBI, the DEA or something, like I realized like you can't smoke weed and also do that,
right.
They frown upon that.
Yeah.
Damn, really?
Yeah.
Ryan and I have been thinking about changing careers, and it sounds like that's when
we're screwed, dude.
Check off
what are we going to do?
They wanted to, like, you had to go to law school after that. And I was like, I'm not here to be a lawyer. So I don't know. I didn't plan to go to like regular college right out of high school to begin with. So I was 17, you don't know what you're supposed to do when you're 17.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to college to be a biology teacher.
Dude, if I'd continued on what I started, I was in, my major was civil engineering, but I was playing in the jazz band too. So I was trying to do civil engineering and jazz performance.
You would be a band geek.
It was fun. Those were fun days, man. I mean, those were the days also when I was doing that, and I was working in restaurants at night, and that scene, the musician scene, as well as the kitchen scene, they're pretty commingled, really. Like,
I would bet they attract a lot of the same people.
There's a rock star piece of being a chef, right? That
artists
you feel, you feel it in those places. Kindred spirits.
Wasn't Charlie Charter didn't he have like a master's in music or something like that? And then he decided to start cooking?
I don't know but that wouldn't surprise me.
How can you not be in a kitchen and not love music?
Yeah.
Like, what else are you going to do when you're in a kitchen? I know there's silent kitchens out there where it's like no music. Yes, chef. No chef. Please don't throw that pan at me, chef. But there's kitchens out there where it's all like, all right, I'm going to put this song on. We're going to get through this rush. Let's fucking go.
Mhm.
Like, let's make this happen. Let's ride.
I feel like I've been in all those, like every, like run the gamut as far as music goes in a kitchen, you know, like where a place I worked at in Miami where the music was just cranked while you're prepping. But then when service started, there was still some music, but it was really low, you know, like, and then I went into the kitchen at 11 Madison Park, like maybe 5 years ago, and it was completely silent, like completely silent. And I was like, you know, there's something like kind of radical about this. It's like, you know, everybody knows their part. Everybody knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And at the same time, it just didn't seem like any fun. You know,
Yeah.
Like, it's just like,
Yeah.
it seems like everybody's miserable back here. Like, is that accurate?
Yeah. That's pretty spot on.
Yeah, I did a stage at the French Laundry, and it was the same way. It was just so hyper focused on what you were doing, and the people who were actually employed and doing the work, yeah, they knew their job inside and out 100%, and it was almost robotic because they were so in tune with what was going on.
Yeah. It's like at places like that, you have to be.
Yeah. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, that was never like, I mean, maybe there was a brief stint in culinary school where, you know, the French Laundry was still kind of like the it restaurant where I thought like, oh man, that'd be so cool. But you know, after culinary school, like, I don't think I really ever had aspirations of working in like the best restaurants in the world. And, you know, there's a place for that for, you know, everybody's got their own little thing they're doing, but yeah, it was never really a goal of mine.
Like you learn food and you're like, I want to fucking play with food the rest of my life and do something different every single day. It doesn't have to be fancy. Like, I mean, some of the best food you have is street food. Going out on the street and eating stuff out there, like that's the best stuff you have. Dive bars. Some dive bars have some of the best food I've ever had. Like, that's fun. That's great.
Yep.
I mean, eating at fancy restaurants like that, what a treat.
Oh, for sure.
Those chefs are fantastic. That's why they're at that level. But that's why they're at that level.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, tell us a little bit about St. John's and like your role there. You know, yeah, what you guys got going on. I know like to make it to the podcast today, I know like you were running down, you were making cheesesteaks. So
yeah,
there's things going on around there.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a super unique job. I never, you know, I never thought I'd be in like the C&U space. Like, you know, when I worked with Hormel, I did a lot of work with like C&U chefs and directors, and I always like kind of admired what they did, but kind of from a distance. Like, I kind of don't know what you guys do on a daily basis, and now I'm in it. I'm all up in it, and you know, we're short staffed, just like everybody else in the world. So during COVID, there was like the station in our dining room that got like, because of staffing issues, kind of got unused, and so we're trying to like revamp it. So I came up with these micro concepts, I'm calling them, and like last week was Roman style pizza, and so we did just 3 different Roman style, like pizza crusts, and then this week we're doing, and that one is called Crustus Maximus. This week is bread Zeppelin, so it's Philly cheesesteak.
Nice.
Who comes up with these names?
I mean, me and ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Between the two of us, we're pretty creative.
You're pretty good.
Between the two of us, we are hilarious.
Yeah. So yeah, we're doing 3. So just like one straight up meat and cheese, and then another one meat, cheese, peppers, and onions, and then like a kind of a fancy one, meat, cheese, peppers, onions, garlic aioli, and pickled or candied jalapenos.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're just doing them. And then next week we're doing WTF. It's called Weekly Taco Feature.
Ah, that's what it stands for.
Big and fun and like kind of splashy and like kind of gets their attention. And we're doing sopes and tacos. And then
oh, nice.
The week after that is Between the Buns, and it is a sandwich concept. So we're in central Minnesota, and you know, it's meat and potato country. We are in the heart of it.
Yeah.
But it's 2025, you know, and like kids, yeah, do they want, you know, tater tot hot dish? Yeah, I mean, I do too. We all do. Let's make it like the best tater tot hot dish you've ever had.
Yeah.
I didn't have sushi till I was like 22 or 3. And now kids are eating, you know, Peruvian food when they're 5 years old, and they're having Filipino and Japanese. And, you know, you have the opportunity to eat with, without travel without traveling. And so these same kids who 20 years ago, yeah, they wanted mashed potatoes and pot roast. We still want those things. There's still a place for those things, but let's also make like really rad tacos and fun sandwiches and, things that kids want. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a really unique situation. So we started doing a guest chef series last fall. So we've done, I think, like 8 of them now. So once a month we bring in a guest chef, and we've been really fortunate. I've got like a pretty good network of buddies in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And two of the chefs that we had on campus won James Beard Awards last year. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Nice.
And 2 nominated again this year. And these kids, they have no idea what they're getting.
Right.
You know what I mean? They come up and they're like, can I get more chicken? You're like, sure, man, you can have more chicken, but like, this might be the best chicken you're ever going to get,
Yeah.
But they have no idea what they're walking into, but we're just trying to have fun with it. I want there to be energy in the dining room. So, it's a Benedictine university. And, so there's some really unique facets to it. So we are open 365 days a year, 3 meals a day. So there's a monastery that is, connected to our dining room. So we have monks that like walk through the kitchen. They'll be in there in like sandals and wool socks and their robes, and they're cooking in the kitchen. And so we do 3 meals a day for 80 monks, 365 days a year.
Wow.
And then there's a retirement center also, and then we have a school of theology, and then our undergrads. So this is an all male campus, and then our sister campus is just a few miles away, and it's an all female campus. But they eat on both campuses. They go to school on both campuses, and used to be 2. We are in the process of integrating, and the only group that hasn't been integrated yet is Culinary. And that is going to happen here in the next like 6 to 8 months. So.
Oh, wow.
I love change. I thrive on change. Like I'm all for schedules and consistency, but like I need things to like change a little bit once in a while. And so I'm looking forward to that, because I think there's going to be some good efficiencies that we're going to get from those 2 campuses coming together.
That is rad.
It is. Yeah.
About roughly how many meals you guys making like on a daily basis? Like, I don't even know if is that quantifiable.
Yeah, no, we track it heavily. You have to, so like, the nutrition software that we have, like it spits out that information, like all your menus that you do, you put them into a like Foodservice suite or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And everybody uses something different, but it's to help you forecast and order.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got we can pinpoint it, pretty well, like as far as ordering, but yeah, we know exactly how many kids, because they have to swipe,
Okay. Yeah.
So we have 3 facilities on campus. So one, all you care to eat. One is like a retail grab and go. And then one is like a coffee shop with like donuts and croissants and shit like that. And so in our all you care to eat facility, we'll do anywhere from like 400 to 700 per meal.
Uh-huh.
So, 1,500 to 2,000 a day in the all you care to eat facility. And then, then the monks, and the grab and go retail spot, I'd say probably 2,500 or 3,000 a day, maybe.
Yeah. Wow.
All combined. Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Do you have to do different menus on religious beliefs, I guess? Like, that must be not too difficult, but like still kind of like mind boggling to where it's like a challenge.
Yeah. That's a good question. Nobody asks that, and like nobody thinks of that, but yeah, we do all sorts of stuff. So, there's special feasts too. So we'll do like, and a lot of these monks, like they're old school, like especially the guys in the retirement center. So, we're talking like pate and Braunschweiger and like old school things that we do very rarely, but we do them a couple times a year.
Uh-huh.
And they love it, but our students wouldn't touch that.
Yeah, they don't want to touch it, do they?
Yeah, but yeah, we do, and we really do our best. We have one monk that is the refectorian, so he's like kind of the liaison between, and he's like an incredible cook.
Rad.
That's cool.
He'll send recipes, but then he'll be like, well, I'll make the baklava, and I'll make the the couscous, and I'll make this, and so we're fortunate in that way that like he helps out, but they get shipped around the country like just on a whim. So he could be gone in like a week.
Oh,
Oh,
And the
wow.
other thing that's kind of really neat about having them on campus is we're like a self-contained community. So we have our own water treatment plant. We're out in the middle of nowhere. So own
Okay.
water treatment plant, our own fire department, our own, monastic gardens and everything. But all the brothers and fathers all have jobs on campus. So like there's a couple of them that are full-time firemen.
Wow.
know,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah, and then some that work in the business office and some that do the gardening and in HR, and so it's a really unique opportunity. I feel really fortunate to be here, and I feel like I don't know what goes on around us, above us, anywhere else in the world, but I feel like I'm here, like right seat on the right bus at the right time.
Yeah. Nice.
Do you live on campus too then, or are you outside?
No, I live I drive an hour every day.
Okay,
Yeah.
that must be brutal sometimes, especially in the winter, huh?
There was somebody that I met. So last week, I was up in Grand Junction, and we were training at this winery, and actually Cold Terrace Winery. It was so cool, so fantastic. But when we got in kind of late the night before, and we stopped and had dinner, and the server that we were talking to, she was telling us her whole life story, which was sort of weird and fascinating at the same time.
Sounds like you, Luke, when you first started your career.
Okay, yes.
Well played, Tony. We all were thinking it, and you finally said it.
But so she's telling me, she was like, well, during COVID, she got this job and she was 100% remote, so she could just do it from home in Grand Junction, and didn't have to worry about going to Denver. And then it was, they got bought by somebody else, and they were like, no, we need to mandate people coming back to the office. And so then she had to go into the office for like, I don't know what, 2 days a week or something like that.
How far is that drive?
It's like 4 hours.
Oh my God.
And so she's like, she tried it, she said, and I was like, I can't believe you even tried.
Yeah,
Like,
no
that's
kidding.
I mean, that's 8 hours of driving each day that you go to the office.
Like a full shift.
That's nuts, right?
I'll remember that. Yeah, keep things in perspective.
Yeah, right. That's funny. So I want to go back to one of the things that you mentioned about, this industry, and how it kind of chooses you, right? Like people fall into it from time to time and they fall out of it. And it's very transient. Like we have people that start in the industry and then move on and then come back and then move on again. And it supports that sort of lifestyle, which is really neat. But we recently had a conversation with somebody about, getting into the industry, but getting in because, maybe they started out and it was like they were a hobby cook, right? Like they were not professional cooks, right? And they made like jams and jellies, and they were trying to sell them on Etsy or something like that, right? And it just kind of turned into this thing that they were like, oh, this is fun, right? But then they decide, all right, I'm going to go all in, right? And I'm going to turn this into a business. And sometimes for people, taking a hobby and turning that into your job is like not the right decision, right? And this is what happened to this person too. They ended up doing a bakery and doing all this stuff, and they started out just making stuff for their friends, and then it was,
You're such a good cook. You should cater. You should open a
right.
restaurant.
And they became extremely overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I wonder, have you guys come across? I mean, I'm sure you have. Anybody that's done it like that? Like, my advice to her was just build it up and then sell the concept to somebody and let them take over. But I'm curious, like, have you guys come across anybody that's had a similar type of experience?
I don't know if I've come across anybody that's had that same experience, but I mean, I think I'd echo the sentiment that we probably all share here. It's like when you go to a party and somebody makes these like phenomenal meatballs, and like, you should open a restaurant. I'm like, I don't say anything, but I'm like, no, you definitely shouldn't open a
These
restaurant.
are great. Thank you.
You definitely shouldn't. I also think like kind of like on the parallel track here, like people ask like, have you ever wanted to open a restaurant? And I think there was a time in my life where I did, but now I just feel like I would love the cooking part of it. I want nothing to do with the like social media part of it. It just seems like such a drag, like such a hassle. You have to constantly be like, I'm relevant. Like, look at me. I'm still relevant. Like, yes, my food is good, but also look what else I can do.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like that'd be just draining. Personally, I'm not on social media of any kind, so maybe it's more overwhelming for me than most people. But
Oh, don't worry. It's overwhelming for us as well. Well, except Robert.
Right.
Robert's really good at it. Me and Luke suck.
Yeah. This is pretty true. Yeah, Robert's the best at it.
They're the best. And it's like being in the rep group firm type job. We have to do social media and be on it. And I'm trying so hard, and I just can't fucking do it.
Mr. Ryan's Neighborhood, please.
I didn't even come up with that. And that was a joke. That started off as a fucking joke when I got yelled at for not doing social media. And now I have to do it every fucking week.
yeah,
Tony, I'll have to send it to you.
I had a similar experience. I was being like chastised for not being on social media. So I started an account called The Real Chef Tony, and it's obviously a joke.
Yeah.
But I just got mocked mercilessly for it. And like people thought I was serious. I'm like, it's supposed to be a joke. Like I've got 11 followers.
Well, you're going to have 12 at the end of today because I'm going to start.
13. And I'm gonna blow up your DMs like crazy too.
Back to your question, Luke. Made me think. I remember one time before I was with Ignite, I was traveling with a rep, and we went to meet this lady at this space that she was wanting to purchase and turn into a restaurant. And everybody's thought she was such a great cook, and she wants to be now a restaurateur. And I walked out of that meeting, and I'm like, I give it 6 months after they install the equipment.
Right.
She's going to be dead. She has no clue what she's doing. Someone needs to tell her not to do this.
Yeah, where are her friends at, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the country club that I started at, the kitchen manager there, he's actually a good buddy of mine now. We just went out for breakfast like two weeks ago or something, and we went to a new restaurant in the town where we live, and it was this couple who had opened a restaurant, and it was based on their grandma's recipes.
Uh-huh.
And you could just tell from the second you walked in the door, no one here has ever run a restaurant before.
Yeah.
I feel for them because as a restaurant industry guy, boy, do I want them to succeed. But it is exceedingly difficult. Just you have to be so good at everything. HR, organization, ordering, purchasing. I mean, not to mention the food and
scaling up their recipes even.
That's
very complicated for somebody that's never done it.
Yeah, like think about dumplings. Think about making your grandma's dumplings that she made for 6 people, and now you're making them for 200
all by hand
or whatever it may be. Yeah. And Robert, like you, we walked out of there and we were both like, "Oof, they're gonna have a tough go." And it's tough because that stat that 80% of restaurants close within their first year, or whatever that stat is. We've all heard it. I mean, this one's for sure on that list, and we want them to succeed, but it's tough. It's a tough goal.
Right.
Man, it's such a blessing and also just awful coming from the industry, because going out to eat is probably one of the most difficult things you have to do in your life, because you just walk in and just instantly go, and you read the entire restaurant and you're like, wrong, food's good, wrong, this is better, nope, and you didn't. And then the person who you are with are like, it's like a first date. And they're like, that sucked. And I'm like, it did. It did. No, they're like, no, you sucked as a person being in that restaurant. I'm like, oh. Like you just judged everything. Always nice to the serving staff. Don't get me wrong about that. Right. I'm always, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. But everything else, I'm like, that corner probably needs a sweep. Oh, look at that cobweb up there. Oh, okay, that light's out. Like,
and you leave thinking you just dropped some knowledge on that first date of yours. You're like,
oh, and she's like, I'm never talking to you again, ever again. Don't block my number, delete me.
I'm sure you guys have heard this question. We all have what's your favorite thing to cook? That type of thing. All the annoying chef questions. And one of them is like, are you always critiquing everything you eat? And honestly, like that's one I don't mind answering, because I'm like, no, I truly am not, because I feel like, let's just use Applebee's. If you go into Applebee's and you expect anything other than Applebee's, that's on you, dude. That is on you. Like you expect this to be like some wonderful culinary experience. It might be, I like their Oriental chicken salad, the wrap, you know.
Hell yeah, Fiesta egg rolls. Let's go.
If you expect it to be anything else, though, I mean, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like funny too. People are like, "Oh, you must critique food every day." I'm like, dude, I ate McDonald's 3 times last week. I'm good.
Yeah.
I got done with my shift and stopped by McDonald's and had 2 Big Macs. I'm okay.
I used to say, especially like when I worked in Jackson Hole, I was working 6 days a week and like 12 to 15 hours. And people would be like, "Oh, did you just love Jackson Hole? What'd you do like on your day off?" And I was like,
I slept.
usually I would like do laundry and eat Wendy's. Like,
Yeah.
That's what
Exactly.
Yeah, there's the romanticized version of like what chefs do on a day-to-day basis, right? And then, you know, what you do on your days off, and you know, you're traveling all over the place. You're just visiting, like constantly visiting like the best restaurants ever that have ever existed in every area that you can think of. And you know, the reality is, you know, you're trying to run that restaurant, right? And then when you're not running that restaurant, which is very small amount of time, you're just trying to recover from running that restaurant.
100%. Yeah.
putting out fires, both literal and figurative, you know.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I loved people going home and be like, "Oh man, your chef must cook for you all the time." No, I don't want to bring my work home with me.
Yeah.
Right.
On my days off, sometimes maybe I'll make like a quick breakfast or something like that. And they're like, "Wow, this is so good." I'm like, "It's not, it's eggs." I mean, I've cooked for girls before too. And I'm like flipping eggs in a pan. I'm like, "Oh shit, fell on the floor." Like, "Aren't you a chef?" I'm like, "Yeah."
This is a whole lot easier to clean up in a professional kitchen.
I actually just cook. I'm not actually a chef. I just cook. Not well, evidently. Don't you cook for a living? Yeah, I never said I cooked well.
Somebody pays me to do it, though.
Yeah. So I'm there.
Well, this is for Luke and Ryan. Do you guys experience this too? So, like you, Tony, you probably don't really know what our day is like, but it's all every day's different. Even though we have a kind of normal job, normal schedule because we have weekends off and stuff like that, we end up putting in a lot of hours. There's a lot of travel. There's a lot of nights away from home, and you know, I'll be talking to somebody in the marketing team that we work with. They're not employed by Ignite, or you know, Alvaro, who's our regional manager. They're like, "Oh, it's Friday. Aren't you glad it's Friday and you got the weekend off?" I'm like, "Dude, I got a honey-do list longer than my arm that my wife wants done."
Yep.
It's like, I'm tired. I'm going
Right.
to sleep in, and then I got a honey-do list to do. And it's like, yeah. And by the way, Don is expecting something from me on Monday. He's our vice president of sales. And it's like, so I know what I'm doing on Sunday too.
Well, and this is something else that Tony and I share, that we both have young kids.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's like, you know, the moment that you're not doing this, you're doing that. Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think for many, many years, and I mean, I could probably speak for many, many chef dads that are out there. I mean, it's hard to make that transition from, like, you know, focusing on execution in the kitchen and cleaning up and all the details that you need to be, you know, crossing off your list, and then switch over to dad mode or husband/wife mode, you know, whatever that is.
Mhm.
You know, they're two so different worlds, you know, like,
And then you had the travel on top of that.
Yeah,
And honestly, dude, I was not particularly good at that, which is why, you know, one of the reasons I had to step away from it. But like, you know, when you're traveling, especially that much, and I don't know how much you guys travel, but
fair amount.
then you know, to come home and like those 3-4 days during the week, you're doing like 100% of your time is like your time.
Yeah.
Then you come home and you're just like, okay, now I need to like essentially flip a switch
Uh-huh.
and have none of this time for myself, which as a dad or a mom, you kind of have to do that. But it was a tough transition for me. Like, and it was like every week, you know, then I'd have to do it. Sometimes I would like leave half of my bag packed. Like, oh, I didn't use that. I
Right.
didn't use that. So I just leave it in there.
Just leave it in for the next trip. Yeah. Geez.
Yeah.
Yeah. To your point, Tony, when I started on the corporate side out of restaurants, and I was working for the manufacturer. I traveled a lot, and my wife's, in the beginning, she's just a little angry. She's like, "Yeah, you're going on vacation again." And she went on one trip with me within the first couple of months, and she's like, "Fuck, I'm never doing that again." First off, now I know how hard you work. Second off, she's like, "Why did I even come on this trip? Because I saw you when you came home from a business meeting at 11:30 at night. You're drunk, and you're back up at 6 a.m. doing something." She's like, "Fuck, I didn't see you the entire trip."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "That's what I do. I'm not on vacation."
You always have to be on point too when you travel.
Totally true.
I mean, even when I was opening restaurants for a while, it's like, okay, cool. Now I have this staff of chef dough that I got to take out for dinner and show them a good time and be on point, and then wake up at 5 a.m., open up the restaurant, make sure that they're doing their prep, teach them how to do a list, all this stuff. And people don't understand it. It's like, oh my God, you live such a great life. Fuck no. Like, I had to be on point all the time. Like, don't get me wrong. I love what I do and I love it.
Right.
And it's great, but it's like, man, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
To your point, Tony, when you get home, you're just like, I need to be alone. I need me time, but I'm single. I'm sorry, but like I have zero responsibility in my life at all. This is my biggest responsibility, was being on this podcast today.
After this, Ryan's going to go back to bed.
But like going back home and having to do, like, hats off to like everybody who has to do that. Like, honestly, that is just, you keep trucking and you keep doing it. And I think that shows what industry people are really made of how you can do this and go home and do that and be successful in life. And that's just fantastic to hear.
It's also, we're resilient folks, and one of the questions I would always field when I was traveling a lot was like, "Oh, do you get to stay at cool hotels?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm staying at the Fairfield Inn by the airport this week."
There you go.
Somebody banged on my door at 2 a.m. thinking it was their room. It was fantastic. Oh, how's the food? Great. The hotel breakfast was powdered eggs and Danish.
So, Tony, as I was looking at the information that Luke had sent over, you've lived in some pretty cool places through your culinary career and all that. Which ones are your favorite? Which ones stand out, and why?
It's a good question. There's so many good ones, and I feel like I learned a lot. Like everywhere I went. I did my externship in Miami Beach. I think you'd probably know by now. Me and Miami Beach, we're not friends. Like,
how can you be?
I have no interest in living in Miami Beach again. But the experience was awesome. The chef was like great. I learned a ton.
Yeah.
I would say Taos, New Mexico was, I worked for a chef there who was Food and Wine Best New Chef like the year before that or something. He actually just got nominated for a James Beard Award in Santa Fe. Joe Reed is his name. So he's still doing it. I learned a ton there. They had a little farm and like a garden, and I didn't know anything about New Mexican food.
Yeah.
Truly nothing.
Yeah.
Like it's. I read an article in the New York Times while I lived there that was like, one cuisine like throughout the world that you cannot find in New York City is New Mexican food.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Interesting.
when I thought about it, I was like, at the time I didn't know a whole lot about it, but honestly, it could be true. I know there's a New Mexican place in Brooklyn that opened probably 6-7 years ago. I don't know if it still exists, but I loved Taos. I mean, as far as like parts of the country, I didn't love Texas, but great experience. And Texas is really where I kind of got my foot in the door. I was working at Jackson Hole, and I was interviewing for a job at America's Test Kitchen. It was for Cooks Illustrated, actually.
Yeah.
They had me like develop a recipe, write a story about it. My landlord at the time he's an author, and so he kind of helped guide me through it. And
oh, nice.
I mean, my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, we worked on this recipe cranberry nut muffins is what they were. That's what they gave us or gave me. We worked on it just like over and over and over. The job was in Boston. My brother and sister-in-law lived in Boston at the time. Like, thought I was a shoo-in. Thought I was in like the 4th or 5th round interviews. Didn't get the job. crushed. Emailed CIA, hey, I'm trying to get into research and development. Can you give me a list of alumni in research and development? I emailed every single name on the list, everybody. And I got probably replies from 20%. I got automatic emails from the, another 30% people who no longer worked there or whatnot. But I got in with a culinary consulting group in Austin, Texas, which is where I got, I made a connection with Turbo Chef from there, and Turbo Chef to American Blue Ribbon Holdings. And, when I was in culinary school, I never thought, I was a restaurant guy, I never thought I was leaving the restaurant industry, and here I am. And I would say all those stops were different, super unique, learned a lot along the way. I don't know if I have a favorite. If we're just talking about like cities or places geographically, I'd say Taos and Santa Fe.
Yeah.
New Mexico is a magical place.
Mm-hmm. The land of enchantment.
It is. Yeah. And to what you said, Tony, I mean, the food that you eat there is so different than, and I don't think, to your point, I don't think I ever see a New Mexican restaurant. I see Southwest and they try to do a red sauce, kind of similar and all that. But, again, it's the terroir. I mean, you got to grow those chilies there. Yeah. I mean, if you're not getting the chilies from there, and your other ingredients, it's going to taste so different. And the smell, Santa Fe just smells so good with that burning wood every single day. Oh man.
Ristras everywhere. And yeah.
We're lucky here in Colorado with Chef Jose Rosenberg and Black Belly Market and everything like that. He's actually originally from Taos.
Yeah, I knew that.
And he's brought a lot of that flavor and stuff into his menus and in his restaurants. So
he was the guy that used to have Jack's, right?
Yeah, well, he was the chef at Jack's. Jack's is a part of the Big Red F restaurant groups.
Oh, okay.
And then he was Food Network.
Yeah, like season 2.
Yeah. He won season 2 of like America's Next Top Chef or something like that. And then like he exploded out here. But yeah, I highly recommend any of his restaurants. Pretty fantastic. He's actually up for a James Beard Award too.
Yeah.
Okay, so to end this, I'm going to do this. Who has the best green chili, New Mexico or Colorado?
That's not a fair question.
I mean,
got to answer it. Everyone's got to answer it. I'm going to judge every single one of you, mother.
I'm going to say, how about this? I have a very neutral response. My sister-in-law has the best green chili that I've ever had.
That's not an answer.
Boo, Luke. Boo. That was such a bitch answer.
Don't give me that. Baloney. I mean, I think if you're just talking about like depth and variety, it's got to be New Mexico.
Okay.
That's a good one. That's a good question.
It's been a war for years between Colorado and New Mexico. But then, as we talk about it more, how many people have moved to New Mexico from Colorado, and how many people from New Mexico have moved to Colorado?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like there's this Juicy Lucy war in Minneapolis, and 2 that claim to be the original. There's one that Matt's that's like the OG. Like that's the one. If you're coming to get a Juicy Lucy, you to go Matt's. The 5-8 Club is the other one that claims to be, in my opinion, no bueno. But there's other places. There's other places in the Twin Cities that do like a phenomenal Juicy Lucy. They're not the original, and there's a place in Madison, Wisconsin that does it. Came from Minnesota, but is it better somewhere else? I mean, who knows?
All right. Tex Mex or actual Mexican food?
Mexican food. Mexico City, Mexican food. Right there to Mexico City. Well, guys, remember that meal? The only good meal we had in Cabo was when we left the resort and we went to that one restaurant. Oh my God, that food was good.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Mole, mole, mole.
I love me some Tex-Mex, but I'm Mexican there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I like a good Tex-Mex too. I live in Austin for 9 months and was like, okay, I need to get no offense to Austin. I'll go back and visit any day of the week, but I'm like, I can't live there. So I lasted 9 months and left. But I had my first experience with Tex-Mex down there, and I was like, if you really like melted cheese.
Who was it? Do you remember?
I can't remember.
Okay.
It was on Congress Street.
I used to live right off of Slaughter in South Congress.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. I lived right next to the Bat Bridge.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a nice spot.
I jumped off that bridge actually
Yeah.
with my friend. Hammered drunk. Honestly, we should be dead, but we made it.
That seems like the perfect place to stop.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Tony. Hey, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Bye.
Until next time.
It was a pleasure having you on today, Tony. Thank you
Yeah.
very much
Been
for
great,
making
Tony.
the time.
Yeah.
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 Man, what a handsome individual Chef Tony is.
He is a handsome man.
Very handsome. Great beard, great hair, great personality. If I was there, I would probably hit on him.
Wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, why not? What a great guest. He was fantastic. Great personality. Love his story and love what he's doing now. That blows my mind that he's like cooking for actual monks. Like,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Not crazy.
And they're cooking too. Like,
Right.
they're like a part of it. Yeah, that's wild.
Right.
I wonder how much knowledge he's learning from them from cooking, because their
Mhm.
recipes have to be crazy for some reason.
Yeah.
I just find that his story was fantastic, and what he's doing now is really cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear the journey of, starting off traditional restaurant, even getting into it when he was 14, and then evolving into different corporate jobs, and where he's at now. And it sounds like he's in a really good place, and he really enjoys what he's doing. So great for him.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun for me just being able to catch up with Tony a little bit. He is a cool guy. Like whenever he got hired on at ABRH, when we were there together, we weren't working in the same city, right? Like he was in Nashville and Columbus, and I was in Denver. But we became extremely close. We had a similar background, similar kind of thoughts about the culinary world and where we were and how we were going to do things. And so, yeah, it was fun to hear him share, like from his own perspective, that journey, right, and everything about it. And I'm so happy for him that he's there at St. John's, and he's got this awesome role there with them, and has the ability to influence so many people on a daily basis.
Still gets to coach and do his job and be happy. And the cool thing too about it is how much he plays with food.
Yeah.
Like those pizzas he was talking about, and the sandwiches and like
Right.
tacos, like, and he's coming up with those funny names and everything.
Yeah.
Like
that shit was funny.
How cool is that he gets to do that? Yeah, that was so funny.
Yeah. Well, that's the fun part. Yeah, those little pop-ups. Yeah,
Right.
keeps it interesting.
All right, so now we do the little. We got to do the outro still, right? Like we got to do the, and you got to
Okay.
spin around, and
No, who's gonna do that today?
nobody. You.
Fuck.
You
I gotta
have to
like
do it.
adjust my room again and like.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe.
Yeah, you do it, Robert. That was great.
That was great.
God, I hope I don't like fall down or break my face again or something. All right, ready?
Yeah, do it.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you subscribe.
I think that was great.
Bryce, yeah? Okay, good.